Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Wedding Pros podcast. And today I got a very special guest.
Yeah.
So this, if you don't know, this is Jordan Bunch from Film Mavericks. Jordan, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay. I'm from Austin, Texas, and born and raised in Texas. I'm a Texas boy. Everybody who knows me online knows that I'm like kind of a fanatic Texan. Love Whataburger and lots of land and beef, tacos.
All good things.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
I'm going to bond with you right now a little bit.
Okay.
My dad's from Texas.
Nice.
Yes. My
So
grandparents are buried in McKinney.
Nice. You're like at least a quarter Texan then.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I'm also a wedding and commercial filmmaker, and recently a documentary filmmaker as well, which is super exciting and definitely like something we're leaning harder into. I definitely feel like the most fulfilled in that work that I felt in a long time. So, yeah.
Very cool. So this is Wedding Pros podcast. Obviously, we're wedding creatives focused, but I think it. And so the question I have for you is, how did you get into wedding filmmaking? I like to ask this to everybody because I feel like everybody's journey is a little different.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking on the car on the way from the airport, and you were talking about oh yeah, because those guys, they're not just like those people who started in photography and they're like, oh, I can make an extra buck. Well, I'm that guy.
Nice.
Who started in photography.
Very cool.
Actually, that's sort of quasi true. Like when I was in college, I did get like this little handy cam, and I would make like these little commercials for my church. Like we're gonna have like a some type of a retreat or something for the college ministry, and I'd make like a spoof of those Geico caveman commercials. You remember those?
Oh yeah.
So we'd get a guy in like a gorilla suit and kind of do a spoof of those, and we'd make some like home videos, like like a little horror, kind of fake horror films, and that was always really fun. But then I got like my first DSLR and was doing like some wedding and engagement shoots and stuff like that. And then I saw a wedding film. It was by...
Who was your first wedding film?
Clint Brock was the first wedding filmmaker I saw. His thing is Candlelit Films, and he's in Dallas. I was living in Abilene, which is like 3 hours away out in the desert sort of. And anyways, I saw one of his films on Facebook, and I was like, holy crap, and I cried watching this film. And it's just like, I'm a softie.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'd cry at Bambi, except I'm a hunter. So, but I definitely just, sort of like broke down. And I remember thinking, I have never seen a wedding photograph that brought this kind of emotion out of me. This is something like I should pay attention to, the fact that I had this kind of an emotional reaction to this guy's wedding film that he made. So I was like, I wonder if I can do that. So I called up a couple of wedding venues that were in town, and I said, actually at first I just called one. Yeah, I just called one wedding venue. I said, hey, I want to try to make a wedding video. And I'd worked there as a photographer before, so they knew me. It's like, is there anybody who's getting married and needs to be in the next 30 days at your venue that doesn't have anybody shooting video? I'll come shoot it. At the end of it, if they like it, they can pay me. If they don't have to. Like, I just want to do it, So that's how I got started.
Yeah. I remember when we started, I was like, anybody really good looking getting married? I asked some friends of mine, they're like, oh yeah, there's one really good looking couple. And we made one wedding film. We booked a whole season off of it.
Nice.
It was like, but and we had no idea what we were doing. But we kind of did.
Yeah. But
not really. So you did wedding films. How long have you done wedding films?
Since 2011, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're around 2010, maybe.
Yeah.
And at some point, so if you don't know, Lady Bird Studios, that's your wedding brand.
Yeah.
And at some point, you went from just you, or maybe you and someone else, to you and someone else and someone else. And at some point, demand. How did you make that decision to go from just being kind of an artist model to more of a studio? Did it happen organically? I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I had another company, Jordan Bunch Productions, and it was just me, I would bring on second shooters, but it wasn't even consistent, like who I would bring to the wedding with me.
It's randos.
So, yeah, I had like a roster of like 5 people that I would choose from, who's available kind of thing. But then I had kids, and I'm always like, thinking about the future, what's next, what's the next 5-10 years going to look like. Actually, even beyond that, like I talk with my wife about like positioning things now for, what does life look like when we retire? Even like down to how many kids do we want to have? Like, okay, right now it might suck having, 3 kids that are 5 and under, but what's that like, once we're done and empty nesters and like, so I'm just like a forward thinker like that. So I actually started Lady Bird with a buddy who, a couple of years later, I ended up buying him out of his part of the business. But, I just wanted to create extra income. And I started off with a really different kind of model than what we shifted to. But that's kind of how we made that transition.
I don't think anybody, maybe not nobody, but people who are doing well, who end up doing a large volume of weddings. And I got to think of a better way. We say studio model. Other people say volume model. I don't think, to me, volume model is pejorative a lot of times. And a studio is a very good thing because a studio has culture, a studio has training, a studio has an approach and a look, a feel. A volume model could literally look different every wedding.
Right.
And so we consider it a studio model. And I think people who end up leaning into more of a studio model for what they do, I don't think a lot of them are like, I'm going to start a studio.
Yeah.
One thing I know we did when we started Stop Go Love is we definitely did say, I don't want anybody to ask for me. I want them to ask for the brand.
Yeah, that was a big part of like my thinking. And I remember being like, dang, why did I name this company after myself? And really the only reason I did is because I was, I went through a period of like not being creative enough to come up with something better that didn't sound terrible. It was like everything I came up with just sounded super cheesy or like a ripoff of someone else that I knew.
What is it like? It's funny to me. There's some bad names out there in our industry.
Yeah, no doubt. It's hard, especially like when it's, centered around weddings. It's kind of hard not to because everything, so many names, like it sort of leans into that cheese, Mm-hmm. But there's some great ones too. Like I'm super jealous that Film Poets. Like I think that's just like the best name in
they did a great
industry.
job.
Like that's an epic name.
There's a lot of them. But then there's a lot of cheesy ones. It's hard to come up with a good name. Branding, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
So you guys, I don't think this is a brag. It's just so people get a perspective, what it means for you as a studio. What's an average wedding season look like in terms of volume and kind of how do you pull that off with your team?
Yeah, we live in Austin, so the weather's good. It's you could get married outside realistically, 10 to 12 months out of the year. It's that kind of weather. Sometimes it gets really hot, and so like in August it's maybe a little bit slower, whereas other it's probably super busy here in August, right?
I would say August is our third most busy month.
Okay. And that's probably one of our slowest because it's just so stinking hot. And Austin is beautiful outside, and there's rolling hills, and there's amazing landscapes and a million wedding venues out there that are, primarily outdoor focused. And so a ton of our weddings are outside. But, on a slow month, we might do 6 weddings, and on a busier month, we could have 18 to 20 weddings. So there's a range there.
Last year, we did 35 weddings in September.
Holy smokes. Yeah, that definitely beats us. That's crazy.
We do September, October, we do about 60 to 70 weddings.
Oh my gosh, that's impressive.
Because it's fall.
Yeah.
In New England.
But you guys have to like cram it in a little bit more, right? Because there's more off seasons, right?
Oh, because it's smoking hot in July.
Yeah.
Muggy as anything.
Okay.
And August is actually pretty smoking hot. And then everybody wants to get married with foliage.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so do you
have like a winter season that's pretty off, or y'all still busy?
So this year's better because we worked on it a little more.
Okay.
When we were like, we don't want quite as. The good thing for us is we book almost all our weddings from January to March, so we get all the deposit money. A brand like ours,
Yeah.
But we end up doing like, I'll probably do a couple New Year's Eve weddings every year, 1 or 2, and then we'll do like maybe 4 or 5 in November. I think maybe we have 4 to 6 from January to February. That's it.
Okay.
So like for us,
Yeah.
our cash flow is really tricky.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Right.
and then you're kind of, so that's why we have the commercial side of our business where we're hopefully 20% retainer or more from commercial clients. And then we have our commercial work,
Right.
and then we have our wedding. I really break it into deposits and second deposits.
Yeah.
Because that's how you have to think about it, because it's sometimes 18 months apart.
Right.
And so like, but that's way distant for us. And we'll probably book, and every year we book in season about 30-40% of our weddings in season.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was asking because, I don't know, you guys are way different from sort of the standard wedding filmmaking company, but I see people on Facebook and stuff. They're talking about like, in early November, they shot their last wedding and they won't shoot again until March. And I'm just like, whoa, that's a really different a schedule. And it's not that they are, they're people who are doing great work and they're running a successful business that's, sustaining them and all that. But it's just like the weather or their business model or whatever the case is, it provides where they have like 4 months off. I'm like, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah. So we have had that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not because we want it. I don't
Yeah.
want, just people don't get married. They just like, or like it's just such a few amount of people. Like
Right.
we've worked on it. We've put some effort into trying to get these bookings. We've hustled a little more with our planners and like, just it's been an effort to try to actually fill those times in. But we have to. I mean, think of it this way: we're doing 120 weddings, basically from May to October.
Yeah.
Like what is that? Like 7 months.
Yeah, something like that.
So we're doing like 4 seasons of most people in 7 months.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So anyway, so you guys, you do a good volume of work and you have a really solid team. Tell me a little bit about your team. Like, what's that like? Team building for you? What does that mean?
So this is one of those areas where I'm like way different from most people. I know like whenever I see people looking online, usually they're looking for people who have a lot of experience. Maybe they have like similar gear to them so it would match. And they're sort of like trying to find somebody who's, mostly an equal. And I went a really different route. I looked for really good people who had creative dreams and aspirations, but, little to no experience behind a camera.
Guess what? So do we.
Hey, it works out, huh?
It's the best way to do it. I heard somebody say it was a photography workshop, and they were talking about they do a volume model, or they do a team-based model, but for photography.
Right.
They said it better than I could have, but honestly, I don't remember who said it, so I would give them credit if I could. But they had said, basically, when they try to get a team person, they say there's like 3 basic types of people. There's a person who is inexperienced and totally green, and they, like you said, they have a creative dream. Then there's a person who is burnt out. They've done creative work and they just don't want to deal with the business side. They just want to do the part that they want to do. And then there's a person who's just moonlighting and they're trying to pick up extra bucks. And they're like, you can get somewhere with person 1 and person 2, but if you build your business on person 3,
Yeah.
somebody who's just trying to make money off of you, you are going to have a really unstable business. They're like, we won't work with that person.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this, I don't work with that person either.
I don't want to work with person 2 either.
I don't prefer person 2, but I have had 1 or 2 occasions where somebody was like, I like what you do. I just want to be part of a company. I just want to work with people and be in a culture. I suck at business. And that worked out okay.
Well, that's a little bit different than I'm burnt out creatively, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. They're more burnt out, I should say, entrepreneurs. They just don't feel they're entrepreneurs, but they are creatives.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, Marshall, who's on the other side of the camera over there, was the only person who I have hired out of film school. Well, out of a 4-year film school. I actually recently hired somebody who was like in a kind of a separate deal. But even he was super green. He kind of came from an audio background, but was very green to video. But pretty much everybody else, like, hadn't really touched a camera. And part of why I did that was because I didn't always do that. And I had an experience of hiring shooters who came with their own gear and like had a portfolio and a website and all this stuff.
Do you guys provide all the gear as well?
We do, yeah.
So do we.
Yeah.
That's actually the secret to scaling.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and the thing that I kept finding again and again was I was, paying these guys good money to come shoot these weddings for me. And I would end up using like 95% of just my footage. And I'm like, oh man, I gave them a lot of money for a little bit of footage that I could have done without. And so, I kind of got to the point where I stopped hiring those people and I started just bringing my buddy along with me and was like, you're just going to carry my stuff for me. And during the ceremony, you'll make sure that camera's still in focus, but don't change anything else.
So what we do is I hire 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. And I say, you're my assistant. And if you're good at that, maybe I'll let you shoot.
Yeah.
And I'll so literally carry my bags, make sure this camera stays on. Other than that, I'm going to teach you some stuff. And so as the season rolls on, we meet and we go like, hey, let's review their performance. Who has promise? Hey, let's start encouraging them to do the audio more. And so we actually run a little camp for assistants as well, where we train them on here's how to plug into an audio setup. Here's how to set up a tripod. Here's how to balance a gimbal.
Yep.
Basic stuff that is it's fundamental and foundational. And all I focus on is hustle.
Yeah.
For the first probably 30 weddings, I'm like, you're moving too slow. You don't know the cadence. You need to pay attention to the schedule.
Yeah.
And do you work hard and do you work fast? And are you willing to run?
Yeah.
And if they're willing to do those things, I'll be like, go shoot the guys.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, hey, do you want a second shooter job? We'll pay you a little more. Oh, and
yeah.
If they do that, we don't let a guy lead shoot for us until they've probably shot at least 40 to 50 weddings.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true for us. It's got to be in that ballpark, right, Marshall? Yeah.
Because we give our lead shooters the phone call of the bride. After we sell, we're like, this is your shooter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we don't do that. But there is like, and it's not that they, the 40 to 50 or whatever the number is, that's not like a number that we're necessarily
it's
counting.
Not a hard, yeah.
It's just like, that's usually how it ends up working out. And we have some people in our company who like actually like, they don't really have any aspirations of being a lead shooter. They want to be a second shooter, and we get great stuff from them. But they've got, they're a preschool administrator, or, they work in a retail store that they love, or whatever, So, we kind of have this mixed bag of people who are just like, like they're either full time with me, or they, are part time but are trying to move to full time with me. Or it's just a really fun thing, a creative outlet, and they've got their other career.
How cool is it, too, when you work with, like, a kid who's in college and they're making way more money than all their friends shooting for. Like, for us, it's very seasonal, right?
Right.
So when you get home from college, you shoot for the whole summer. They'll be going back to school, and their friends will be telling them how much they made, and they're like, I made 3 times that much.
Right.
And I was like, I love that feeling. Like, as a entrepreneur and as a business owner and as a person who I think is outputting value to the world.
Right.
I'm like, I'm making this guy's dreams come true.
Yep.
And I'm getting him paid.
Right.
And I'm making money, and it's like a win-win-win.
Yep.
And it's like, I think that's, if you're looking and you're going like, hopefully you're seeing the softer side, if you're listening to this, of a volume model, because there's that side that I think other people don't like. We were talking in the car about there's these savage companies that are just soulless, that who knows how much of the film they even touch. Like you were saying, they're booking agencies, right?
Right. Yep.
And that's not what we do.
Right.
We're people first. We're client first. I would never hire someone to work for one of my clients that I did not know intimately.
Yeah. Well, and, at least the core part of my team, like the full-time people and the other people who are like, that far integrated, very much feel and use words like family to describe the team. And that is just a very different kind of thing altogether. That's what whenever I go to a lot of workshops and conferences and so I get around and talk to a lot of people, and that's what the vast majority of the people in this industry are longing for, that they don't have, is that kind of a relationship with a peer, because most people are kind of having to do this on their own. Maybe they have a partner, maybe it's their spouse, or maybe they have a buddy who just comes and shoot with them. But having like that kind of peer-to-peer relationship that we get to have by having a studio is just like amazing. And, I long for more people in this industry to have that. I know that their lives would be enhanced. Their work would be enhanced by it. Ours certainly has.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like you find that the rules get stretched in a good way when you get around other people, because your mind gets opened up to possibilities, right? And you start thinking like, okay, where are we a little slow? Like literally something I'm having, and this is so nerdy, but it's like this conversation about like our data chain. Where is it slow? What would happen if I made it a little faster? If I got all our weekend off like uploads done by 10 a.m. instead of 11 a.m., like you're calibrating at that level.
Yeah.
And like, and that guy's like, oh, that'll make my life so much easier, because then I can get it to Caleb before he left, and then we would have some recap done by the end of the first day. And like, you're having those conversations that are quality of life conversations for other people, but also for your clients. I know for me, if it was just me, it really wouldn't matter when I got my uploads done, because nothing else is getting done for that day very effectively, especially if we're uploading 4 to 6 weddings of content on a Monday.
Yeah.
I'm done. Like if it's just me, but if I have a team, my clients are better served, and then we all feel more fulfilled, and the guys are seeing their work being put out into the wild and all this cool stuff. And it's like, that's kind of conversation about like literally just what is the benefits / negatives about like upgrading our NAS or switching to 10 gig Ethernet cables or using a certain lens.
Yeah.
That I'll give you the real world example. This season, there's this one guy who's shooting, and I think he's 21 years old, and he's shot with us for 2.5 years. He's a really good shooter. And I was looking at some of his stuff, and he does this one thing with a gimbal. And I was like, everything, that looks good. Why does that look good? And then I'm like, oh, actually, because he's short. So, A, I like his point of view.
Yeah.
And second of all, I'm like, this looks so much better. And you must be so close. He's like, I don't want to use that lens. Everyone else uses this one lens on the gimbal. That's how we do it.
You shoot wide. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't like that lens.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. He's like, I only use the 50.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's do that next year. So we sell our 24s. Everyone, I want that look for our gimbal stuff.
Yeah.
That happens because I'm collaborating with a 21-year-old kid and respecting his opinion just as much as I respect my own.
Yeah.
And letting him actually experiment and not being a jerk, but also like listening.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. We're in office, or you're in an office, you're in a studio. One of the cool things that happens, and I know this is a value of yours because of, we spent some time at Vision Quest. You did a really, I'm sure that totally floored some people, your session at Vision Quest, because it was pretty unexpected.
Yeah, nobody expected that. For
basically, sure. If you weren't there, he basically, I don't know, describe what you did, basically. Kind of.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe that in a small part of a podcast. I mean, basically, we did what my team and my family have made a regular practice in our lives, which is understanding, listening to each other, but also communicating what's happening inside of ourselves. So, it's pretty normal.
What was that?
Family,
the acronym?
SASHAY.
Okay.
So
what does that
stands
stand for?
Sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, and tender. And it's the 6 major emotions that you can say. You can point anything you're feeling back to one of those things. So, it's pretty normal in a family.
I'm feeling excited about going to the Patriots game with you tomorrow.
I'm feeling, and I'm feeling happy because I already know in advance that my Cowboys are going to pull out the W. Of course, by this time, you guys know whether or not that happened.
Yep.
but it's normal in a working environment or a family environment to talk about what happens in your day, to talk,
Sure.
sort of describe objectively, this is what happened in the day. But
Or even to go like, I don't like that lens, use this lens, like talk about what's occurring in the moment, the job.
Anything. But to talk about how you're feeling about those things brings a very different level of intimacy and a deepening of relationship, which leads to all sorts of wonderful things. It leads to a better creative environment. It leads to a better place where we can, truly be ourselves and speak our minds and push each other in different ways, where we can be, kind of raw and honest with each other because we know we have each other's best interest in hearts. And then we also spend a time where we encourage each other, actively, vocally, like saying, here's the good things about you. Here's what I appreciate about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that creates a very different kind of working environment.
So let me tell you what his session was from an outsider.
Okay.
So basically he got up and I was like, I hope this isn't just some self-help crap. Because you never know with that stuff, right? And so he got it up and I was like, but the cool thing is you just went for it. So you didn't just tell me something, you forced us to do it. And I was like, okay, good. So he made us do this exercise where we all had to say something, and basically you express those emotions and no one's allowed to give any feedback.
Yeah.
Just sit there in silence and listen. And then there's another round where you give feedback. And so this is 100 people who barely know each other having to do this really weird, awkward experience.
Yeah.
And like, it took some guts, man. It took some guts, but I think it worked out. And then so I say all that.
How many tears did you see in the room, though? Right?
I didn't remember seeing because I was more focused on my group.
Well, that's good. So this was the part where I got to be an outsider because I was not, I checked in front of everybody on stage, boo-hooing,
Yep.
being quite vulnerable in front of, all 100 people there. But I walked around the room and, there was, I don't think I saw a single one of the groups that didn't have at least, one person showing some heavy emotion through tears, So it is the kind of thing where I know it's just, if you're just watching this and you hadn't experienced it, it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But to experience is a whole different thing.
Well, I was going to ask you about like creating vulnerability in an office place, a listening environment, but I think maybe we can expand even that idea and say like, as creatives, I think there's a lot of, I'm trying to think of a non-crude way to say this. We'll just say ego-driven competition.
Okay.
In our industry,
Yeah.
and ego-driven dissatisfaction. Yeah, and not that anyone did anything to you, but that because you feel so isolated, you're measuring yourself based on your own ideas of who you should be, and you're not in relationship. You're not in community. And I'm a big believer in community. I think everything, you have to do life with people, right? And so how do we as a community of creatives, like, I know in our studio we try to work on this. We want to get better at it, but I do believe like everyone who works here loves working here.
Yeah.
And they love each other. And like the benefit is huge. Like I know if somebody comes in and they're like, I'm having a hard time like with my house, we're going to talk about that. Like whatever's going on in their home or their marriage, like we have that. And not only that, but I'll come in and say that sucked, you did bad work. And so it's like iron sharpens iron in every area. How do we as a community kind of get better at this? Because I feel like when I hear a lot of people like, oh, vulnerable moment, I'm like, that wasn't a vulnerable moment. And you're on Facebook. I don't even know that's not the place.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely like a place to learn and to be inspired,
or just make fun of people.
Or make fun of people. That certainly happens a lot on Facebook. So I do think that there's some level of like these events like Vision Quest being like a place for that to happen.
I felt like that was like mainly what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's super important for anyone who's, desiring that, which should be everyone. But I also think that that's only gonna sort of be a Band-Aid.
Oh, totally. Because it's not like you can spend $30,000 a year making friends.
Right.
Like, not that costs $30,000, but I think the amount of this you need in your life far outpaces the amount of opportunities there are to pay money to go to something like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are other creatives in your city wherever you are. So, find those people and build a relationship with them. But also just like be real with the other people in your life who are not part of this field at all.
This weird subculture.
Yeah. Maybe they can't understand, your problems of, weird imbalances of light color, but they can understand, the stress or the creative rut that you're in or whatever it is, and can empathize.
Well, and they probably can understand better than you think.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I see is there's a lie in people's mind, and this idea that I'm super special and that's what's most important about my identity, is I'm special and stand out, and because inevitably there will be moments in life that will shake that belief. And when you actually truly have to deal with that, it will really hurt you if that's the core of your identity. People go like, I'm really special and unique. That is what drives a creative community. Like, that's how workshops are sold.
Yeah.
You're special. You have a unique vision. Oh, you're special. Don't undersell yourself. You're this value, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what about when the weddings aren't coming in?
Right.
And that if you just charged $500 less, that you would actually get booked fully, but you're afraid of what everyone on the Facebook group is going to say about you and what that means about you're not valuing yourself. It's like, no, I'm valuing, my hierarchy of values is not my ego.
Yeah.
My hierarchy of values is like providing for my family.
Yeah.
And that's very respectable if you do that. And I think like this, because of these types of problems, I think people end up very much so isolating themselves because it wouldn't benefit them to be real, at least in their mind. Like there are groups, I won't say them, that meet. I don't know if you have some of these groups, but there are creative groups, especially wedding centric ones, that meet. And I know for me, like when I went to the group, I hated it. I thought it was terrible. And I was like, I am not down with this because these people's values are so different than mine. Their businesses are so much smaller than mine. And so what I would say was, if you're feeling isolated and you need community, you're going to have to kill your ego a little bit. And you're going to have to figure out a way to actually care that you're adding value to someone else. And that has to be and you also have to accept that like you being the smartest and most creative person is not a very good life value.
Yeah.
And then you get it. And the other thing is this, at the same time, it's okay to acknowledge that just because someone shoots a camera means that they are the people you should be in community with.
Right.
Because what I found, there are and I'm working on this, and I'm actively trying to say, like, who are the people that I can have this kind of community with. But I've also found just finding other entrepreneurs, like you had said, who aren't necessarily working in this exact field. But that helps a lot with me as an entrepreneur. I think this is a major issue, though, in the creative space.
Yeah.
You see a lot of really sad people.
Yeah. And, to your point about that is, I think that there's this big divide between people who are trying to grow a business and people who are, trying to sustain themselves through filmmaking. Those are just like really different things. And usually when it's being described, they're described as the same thing. Do you think that's different than someone who's trying to spend their time expressing themselves? Yeah, I do think I feel like that can be described differently because that's just sort of like, the indie filmmaker, versus like the person who's trying to, for lack of a better word, it's sort of like the mom and pop. And, that's just a very different sort of thing than somebody who's building a studio. I'm not saying one's good, one's bad. I'm just saying they're totally different. But what I think both need to do is to say, there are things I can learn for my business outside of this industry. And so I need to reach into other industries to learn, because there's actually very few people in our industry, like percentage wise, who know anything about running a business.
Yeah.
And it's really just kind of like, I make good films, and I'm good to people, and I treat my clients really well, and that leads to more work for me. But there are so many other things of value that we can learn from other entrepreneurs who are in the tech space, or running the Chinese restaurant across the street over here, like whatever it is, like there's value to be had there. So finding relationship with other entrepreneurs, I think, could be really beneficial.
Yeah.
Too.
I think we've done all kinds of stuff to do that. And we're lucky enough to, as business owners, because when we started our business with commercial side. And we always branded it separately. And my first hire was a web developer, because I like the creative space. I came out of bands and making all my own websites and all my own videos and all my own everything. So I'm multidisciplinary when it comes to being a creative. And I was like, I just don't want to limit myself with what I could do and how I can make money. And I enjoy it all. I like working with clients. I spend a whole week of my year at a marketing roundtable for independently owned hardware stores.
Huh.
Sitting with them and talking to them about marketing their hardware stores.
Yeah.
I learned so much from that environment about being efficient and about running a CRM.
Right.
Just all these things that I don't even realize it. It just by osmosis, it works my way into the business. But so one of the things I like about you, Jordan, is because you have certain values that I think extend beyond just make money, and definitely beyond be a good artist. You have human values that I think that just comes across in how you communicate and how you built your culture. But what would you say to someone who's looking to kind of start a wedding film studio that would be most important beyond learn how to shoot, like the stuff that people normally kind of talk about, like buying hard drives, all that stuff matters, but
sure, the
human side of it?
Where's this person? I'm trying to is this like a brand new, I guess I'm trying to.
Let's imagine the people that always call us and ask us to give them advice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the people who call me and ask for advice, or ask for advice on behalf of someone else, which recently happened this week, was like, you have to connect with other people locally in this industry. And be there, be a servant, have like a servant's attitude, and just like, hey, I want to help you build your business. I want to do whatever I can to help. Yes, I do want to learn along the way, but I think I will learn best if I'm really helpful to you. Mm-hmm. In fact, actually, we have somebody on our staff who came to me that way. And they were just like, can I work for free for you? And I was like, yes, you can.
No. How dare you? Second shooters need to be paid $500 a day. Don't you know that?
And he just wanted to soak up knowledge. He wanted to, to learn how to edit. And so he was in the studio 5 days a week as an unpaid intern for a couple of months.
Oh, and you're like, you're looking for ways to pay that guy.
Absolutely. And, as soon as I had the opportunity, we did. So like, that's certainly like a great way to get in and to learn. And,
what about the guy who's running a business who is looking to create a studio? How do they do that? Like, what beyond like the obvious logistical challenges that I think a studio has, which maybe we can talk about a little bit, but because I think the culture side and the people side is actually much more important to doing it successfully than just, do you know how to run a spreadsheet? Yeah.
Well, I think it comes back to what I said earlier of we don't hire other, professionals. We're not partnering with other professionals. We're looking for really good people, for people who are coachable, who have a dream of doing something in a creative field. And those are the people that we're trying to partner with. And so, that means I'm investing a whole lot of time and money into them. I would pay those people while I'm giving them training. We would set up a workshop where we go to a wedding venue and I walk with them through a full wedding day and what does that look like? Investing a lot of money into extra equipment so that they'll have the gear that they need whenever they go out, and I'm not relying on kind of rolling the dice on what they choose to bring to shoot a wedding. But really, like, to know that in order to do this right, you have to do it the hard way.
Yep. The expensive way too.
It's hard and it's expensive and it takes a long time. This is the world's worst get quick rich scheme.
Yeah, it's not very good at that.
And I think it's just really important that if you want to build a studio that is done that way, and it's like, because we did it that way, now I have like this core team of people who are really good at what they do. I will put them against any shooter in our city. But also they're very passionate about the work that we do. They're very passionate about the team that they're a part of. And we work together amazingly well. I mean, we just made our, we finally finished production, and we've been doing some screenings at some really cool theaters all around Texas for our first feature-length documentary. And, it was made with a really small team of people. It's 5 people worked on this film, really. I mean, we had a few PAs and stuff like that. But really, 5 people made this feature-length film. That's, I think really impressive. And
like when you think about that, kind of doesn't matter even if it's good or does well in terms of what that means for the culture of your company, because that's an experience that some of those people will treasure for their whole life.
Absolutely.
They will always remember that and think about that, and they will be like, we did this.
Yep.
And I think
that's our film up there on the marquee, and we got to have it on this marquee of this historic theater. Like, that's really cool.
I made this, and I think when you can start to use the we language instead of the me language, and that's what I was really saying about ego, is this will set you free. You need to speak in terms of we sometimes, and not just me. Your family, your friends, your teammates. Even like when I look, the best part about going to Vision Quest is now I feel like I have a we.
Yeah.
Because we're out here alone. We don't have other creatives, and we have each other, and that's great.
Yeah.
So I don't feel isolated, or I don't feel the loneliness that some other people feel. But I definitely know now that there are other people running businesses like mine. We've kind of talked about the details of our business, but the irony is there's so many similarities. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, there's a we.
Yeah. I did not know that you existed before that, and it was like awesome to find you, because I was like, oh wow, this is really cool, because you started it before that we did, and it's just cool to because it is sort of as an entrepreneur, and you're blessed to also have like an equal partner in this, but it's hard when you can't, and you expressed this to me before, like when you can't relate it to anybody else. So that's been a joy for sure. And I found that same joy like in my relationship with Joe Schweitzer, who, certainly a different business model, but it's a studio type team that does weddings and corporate events. And same thing with Aaron Tharp. And I actually haven't met Joey, who's the owner of the company. But, these guys who are really building studios that are in both of these spaces,
high
of
quality,
wedding and corporate,
culture-centered environments.
Yes.
That are around people. They're not based around money. They're not based around doing the most possible weddings. Every year we may have the question, how many weddings can I do and still do my product and treat my people right?
Yeah.
And that's unique. I think that is what's unique. And it's really about, when I think of the we, which is my team, and then I think of the we, which is my industry, and then the people who do it like me. And it's like, the more I can expand myself beyond the bounds of myself, the more happy I am.
Yeah.
The more I am become enclosed and internalize all my emotions and my feelings and even my self-image. Like, think about how crazy that is. If somebody is in this place in their life where they have so little feedback from the universe and from their community and all the people around them that they're literally measuring their own self-worth based on the content that they release on the internet. That's horribly unhealthy.
Yeah.
like as a human being. It's not a good business model either because other creatives aren't giving you money, by the way. So if they like your work, it matters a little, but
it's a dopamine hit,
Yeah.
Oh, I got a heart on that one.
Oh, wow. Like this guy I really respect commented, great work.
Yeah.
Literally, he might have been like, watch 2 seconds of it. Cool, dude. Hope he buys my lot now.
Yeah.
Like literally that could have happened.
Yeah.
And for us as creatives, you have to find people that expand you.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. So talk a little bit about Film Mavericks and kind of that journey a little bit. And for anybody that's interested, he also runs, Film Mavericks is a commercial film company / corporate work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Commercial and documentary. We've done a number of short documentaries this year too. So it is a new space when I say this year, like 2019, but Lady Bird got to the point where I really didn't need to do much for the company anymore. I have not filmed a wedding in over a year. And I'm not like done with weddings. I'll probably do some next year. We did, I don't know, 120 or something weddings as a team this year, but I didn't film any of them. And also it didn't need me a whole lot in the office either. Cause I was sort of like trying to get to this place of like business maturity where it could run without me. Mm-hmm. And I used the birth of my my third child as a sort of a test run for that. Like I completely stepped away for 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, when my son was born.
I love that it's 2 weeks because other people like I totally stepped away for 6 months.
Yeah,
like when you're running what we run, it's like 2 weeks out of the office. It's like, terrifying.
No doubt, and it was. But I didn't check in with anybody. I didn't hear from anybody. And when I got back, there was a pile of checks on the desk that needed to be deposited. They were from new bookings that had happened. There was a stack of weddings that I needed to review because I watch every wedding film before it goes out. Yep. So there was a stack of wedding films that had been edited that need me to watch it before it goes out. But everything kept running perfectly well in my absence, and that was just like incredible. And I was like, okay, this company does not need much help from me anymore.
How amazing does that make you feel? Like you feel like they're supporting you.
Absolutely.
You now, because you've built that team, have people that are giving back to you.
Yeah,
it's huge.
Absolutely. But it was that realization that said, okay, I can really throw my energy into starting something new now, because as an entrepreneur, I just love starting new things. Like it's really hard for me to sit still. It's hard for me to do the same thing. I notice a pattern in my life of like every 2 to 3 years, I have to change something up significantly in order to feel satisfied. And so this was, that timing had come up, and I'm like, all right, let's start something new. So that was sort of the birth of Film Mavericks. Was that realization that now I have the freedom to start something new. And there was a lot of different phases in this first. It's only a year and a half old at this point.
Do you have a content? Do you have a show?
We do have a show. The Film Mavericks show. We have a podcast. We did this podcast for about 2 years under a different name, Wedding Film Academy.
I was like, I remember that.
Yeah. We had more than 100 shows up, but there was a lot that went into like realizing I need to shift my focus into other areas. And part of it was just like, it's starting to feel like work now. And I was doing this for fun, and now it's starting to feel like a lot of work.
And it doesn't pay like work.
Well, yeah, exactly. I love work when it pays, but this was like a fun hobby. And then all of a sudden it wasn't a fun hobby anymore as much. And so now it's like, I'll create a show whenever I want to, whenever I feel like it. And it feels like it'd be fun and good news to do it. And usually that just means like if I'm in person with somebody
who's cool, who you want to get their message out to the world.
Yeah. So yeah, we do have a show. We have a YouTube channel. But the primary work that we're doing now is two things. One is we want to do both short and feature-length documentaries. We're about to start on our second feature-length documentary, which I'm like super stoked
Is it
about.
secret? Can you give us any info?
I can give you a little bit of info. So it's actually it's going to be sort of a mockumentary,
Okay.
and it's a tech startup who's hired us. This tech startup got, about, I don't know exactly what the number is, but somewhere between $5 and $10 million in funding.
It's not Pied Piper, right?
It's not Pied Piper. So anyways, but they got this. It's crazy how the tech world works. They got all this money, more than $5 million in funding without a product.
I mean, I know how that works.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So
if you've never gotten to the world of like VCs or whatever, it will blow your mind, the stuff that happens.
They had a really good team, a really talented team that they put together and said, we have an idea. They said, okay, here's $5 million. So they're giving us a chunk of that and saying, okay, let's make this documentary. And it's going to be a documentary about this new technology that they created. Because they created this technology when they were working for another company, a company that is an app that's on every one of your phones. I guarantee it.
Yep.
I won't say what it is, but I guarantee you it's on all your phones, and you're paying them, $15 a month.
Do you know how? Do you use Slack?
I use Slack.
Do you know where Slack came from?
Where?
Slack was the communication. It was like a part of a video game. They made this really terrible video game.
Yeah.
And the team that made it made like a thing you could use in the game to talk to other people.
Okay.
And the game fell apart, and then they were like, this part was pretty good. And that's how Slack.
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyway,
so they were
that
slacking
kind of,
playing the game.
Yeah.
So that's where the name came
and
from.
then it
too.
became like
That's
the
funny.
most ubiquitous tool ever.
Yeah, that's awesome. But anyway, they're a startup, so they have like they're also like they're in their 30s. They've got a lot of energy. They're quirky, so they actually want to kind of like make a mockumentary. So we've been actually on the plane over. I was like writing up a bunch of script ideas because we're gonna sort of model it after The Office. The Office was filmed like it was a documentary.
Yep.
And so we're taking a lot of sort of themes from The Office. And so it's going to be a really, really fun project that we're just stoked about.
Well, when you think about like getting paid to do something like that,
yeah,
it doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, because like this is going to be, we're going to get to do a lot of travel, and I'm on the script, I'm on the airplane typing on my iPad, like, laughing, writing up these script ideas, showing Marshall, we're cracking up on the plane. It's just like, this is really fun. And I feel super fulfilled creatively doing this. I forgot how much I love writing, actually.
Yeah.
Because I used to write a lot. I had a blog that I ran for a long time, and I loved it. And I just I haven't done it in like, I don't know, 5-6 years.
That's one of my life dreams, is to write a lot. And then I just don't.
Yeah. I just forgot how much I love it, and I feel like I'm
afraid of what would happen if I wrote all the time.
Yeah.
Because like
people would know what you're thinking.
Well, no, I know. People would really know, because I get like super clarity when I'm writing.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I didn't want to say that.
Yeah. That's the great thing about writing, though, is like you do get a lot more clarity.
So you're doing this, you're making a documentary, and then of course, here's what I'm always interested in with people who are doing commercial work. What have you found to be, because this is new to you, right?
Yeah.
We've been doing commercial work for about 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know, in my opinion, the hardest part about doing commercial work is getting clients.
Yeah.
Like, because of all different reasons. Like, it's so much more political than if you're a wedding filmmaker.
Yeah.
We did a pitch for a hospital in Boston, and the process was, I would say, borderline dehumanizing.
Yeah.
To get the job. And
did you get the job?
No.
Yeah.
No, the amount of work I had to do to not get the job is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time, I've experienced.
It does. Yeah. I work up these, 5-page, like beautifully designed PDFs.
Yeah.
Or like now recently I've started building pages on our website that sort of function like the way our PDFs before that worked, where it's like more interactive, and it's got all these videos implanted in it that are sort of like themes and examples of what we could do, whether it's our work or somebody else's, and we're just saying like,
here's a treatment.
It's kind of a mood board, right? It's a video version of a mood board. But yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing is like there's a ton of what's essentially pre-production that goes in where you're sort of rolling the dice, you know?
Well,
Maybe I
and
get this,
when,
maybe
when
I
I
don't.
hear people say something like, "Oh, blah blah blah," I told you spec work, and I'm like, have you ever got a commercial job? You have to.
Yeah.
You don't get to just show up and be like, oh, people should, like, maybe some people do, but like most of us that are in this field, we're showing up and we're having to always sing for our supper, and that to me is really hard. So for you, with this kind of experience, what has that been like, having to grow? Like, basically, you had weddings down.
Right.
You knew exactly what you had to do. You probably still do. You're still getting the clients. What was it like to kind of just jump into this whole new thing?
We had a really bold and, weird plan for how to do this. I had been watching a lot of Seinfeld's show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, and I was just like looking at this and like, looking up some stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's getting paid $10 million an episode to do this, and like this is the most like basic production ever. Have you seen the show?
Yeah, it's like
it's like super basic. It's like a few GoPros up inside the car.
You could probably set cameras up rolling with enough hard drive space and leave.
Yeah,
like, and that show could be recorded.
Yeah. And, so we would, we decided, hey, let's produce a show that is shot in that same style, but it's for local entrepreneurs. And we're going to like target people who we think have like a high capacity and need to hire us. And so it'll be a great way. Like I can build a relationship with this entrepreneur.
Love that idea.
And yeah, do it. Absolutely. I can build a great relationship with this entrepreneur. They can see my crew and how we work together. They'll see a final product that we made for them. And I'm giving them free value. There's a piece of video content that they can use to promote their business.
As Terrell Owens says, I loves me some me.
Well, that
everybody likes to hear themselves talk.
That plays into it for sure. I mean, like, we all, any entrepreneur, there's a level of pride there. And I don't even speak of that negatively.
No,
I mean,
no.
like,
yeah, totally.
And people want to tell their story, but it's a lot cooler if they can have somebody else tell their story for them instead of like.
Well, they might not even be good storytellers, but they're good people with good ideas.
Yeah. So that was really how we got that kicked off, and I think we did like 8 episodes of that or something like that, 8 or 10 episodes, and. It cost me like about $1,000 an episode to produce between, having my crew there and then like editing it and everything, So it was kind of a bold and weird marketing strategy. But I mean, it definitely produced some fruit, I mean, we had, we actually had one person who, I didn't reach out to be on the show because I didn't think that they were like a good fit for us in terms of like being like a retainer type client or something, but they wanted to be on the show. They called and said, hey, can I be on the show? And I said, okay, $5,000, so that paid for like half of the season. So, it's kind of a wash at that point. And then, we had another couple of people who signed on to some bigger contracts, some like $25,000, $30,000 contracts that came from it. One of them who like sort of put it on hold for a while because things weren't going good in their business, but they actually just called me like this week and they're going to start it back up. So that's exciting. And then like one of those people, like the first episode that we did, that person just recently booked me for, it'll be like a 2.5 day, actually really like basically a 2-day project. That'll be, about $12,000. So it worked, it didn't work as well as I hoped it would, but it definitely got us going.
And with commercial work, you're dealing with 3-year cycles.
That's the thing is that, with commercial work, you're planting these seeds that are going to take a long time to germinate. And you're going to have to really be a gardener. You have to tend those things a long time. And that's really the painful part. And,
it's painful.
I mean, I've had a lot of down times, like, sort of like personally. I shared this at Vision Quest, like a lot of like self-doubt.
Yeah.
Because they take a long time for those things to germinate. But, when they do, when the plant pops up, usually it's pretty good.
So one of the biggest things for my business is about 40% of our revenue is commercial.
Nice.
And that, and about, whatever percentage of that is on retainer.
Yeah.
And that's changes how a wedding business runs, because wedding businesses are so seasonal and they're feast and famine, and you're looking at this, and it also changes who you can hire in your company, because you can start hiring people who are good at certain things but not other things that actually really are nice value adds. You start to seeing what they add to your culture and what they do for the type of work you're open to even taking. And so I know that's always been our business model as well, and but we're not amazing at getting new clients, partially because we honestly can barely service the clients we have in terms of time. Like we're doing it, and I think we're doing it well, but I am always like, if we get one more person, I'm just gonna have to hire someone. It's gonna be a wash, and then I'm gonna lose. I'm just basically gonna be at zero.
That is like the thing, right? Like when you're talking about some of these clients, like a lot of times, like one good commercial project can pay for a new salary.
Mm-hmm. It needs to sometimes to even do the work,
right? Because like now you have to go get the other one in order to actually make any money off of that.
Yep.
But it is kind of an interesting thing, and that was sort of my thought process on one of the strategies that we had, which was let's build YouTube channels for companies.
Mm-hmm.
So company wants to start a YouTube channel, but they don't have anybody who could do anything decent, and they don't want to put crappy stuff and make their business look like crap, because they've got a iPhone video on their YouTube channel and a whole bunch of them. So we'll shoot these things in batch. We might shoot a dozen videos in a day, and so it makes it like more affordable. It also makes it easier for them because their time's really valuable, so they can take 4 days out of the year and have a full YouTube channel.
Yep. That's a great idea.
But that was sort of like part of my thinking of that is, okay, assigning one of those means I can hire another editor, but it's only going to take up this much of his time, and then that gives me this much of extra stuff that I can have them do to add sort of free value. So it's definitely still a process. Like I would really like us to have another 8 of those contracts, more than we have now. But we're only a year and a half into it, so I don't feel too bad.
No, and it's like it's hard, and so this is why I brought this up. And we'll kind of wrap it up soon, but like if you're moving into commercial work, which I assume a lot of wedding professionals aspire to do.
They should.
Yeah, but I assume they do. If you are doing that, and if it's hard, and if you realize it's way harder than weddings, first of all, stop complaining, guys, about weddings. They're awesome. It's like free money in a lot of ways. Just do a good job and people will hire you. Be nice to people. People will hire you. You don't even need to be that smart or that good of a business person to make a living off weddings. There's a limit, but like, man, you can just, if you do a good job and you're nice to people, you can build a very respectable career in weddings. That is not true of commercial work. You need to be, it's almost like you can do a mediocre job, but you have to know how to sell.
Yeah.
And like get the right relationships, be nice enough, but not so personal that people come across as and then they still might not hire you. Like I am actually in charge of purchasing for a company, media purchase, not 100%, but like basically anything that gets bought for their marketing is because I tell them they should buy it.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, I'm not looking for this. Call me next year.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not in the year. It's not in the budget for the year. It's not in our priorities. We're not going to buy this media or this advertising campaign, or call me next year. Yeah. Like that is how companies work.
Yeah.
They'll be like, you call them up. Hey, I love your work. It's really great. I'd love to work with you sometime. That could literally in their mind mean in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Not only that, they will forget about you the second you leave the room.
Yeah.
And so
that's why that cultivating of those relationships is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's someone who we made one of these episodes of, and afterwards he told me, he was sort of like interested in the idea of doing a documentary, and this is a company in the medical field. he just got awarded the fastest growing company in Austin, Texas. Like this is
That means something.
Yeah, this is a really impressive company. And, you know, I got to create the show for the CEO. He's not actually the CEO anymore. He's like the chairman of the board, you know, but he's the guy who started it. And, you know, he said, I think we should make a documentary about this. Well, in my mind, I'm like, all right, let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. Let's do
it,
you know. And, you know, I still believe that it will happen. He actually came to the theater in Austin that showed our documentary. So I invited him to that, and he and his wife came and watched our documentary film. He had great things to say afterwards, you know. And so we're like still cultivating that relationship. And, you know, honestly, like I just take so much value from the relationship in general because, you know, he built a company that's the fastest growing in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, he adds value to you just by knowing you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just gain a ton of wisdom from being around him. But I also really want to make this documentary, you know.
Yep.
And so, you know, there's a cultivation of that relationship that has to continue to happen.
Mm-hmm. I would say the biggest difference, this is why weddings to me are like fish in a barrel, because it's a captive audience with a finite time to book you that has the money and desire. It's a perfect storm of sales. The person's calling you. They're emotionally driven by what you have. They have a deadline and a budget.
Yeah.
And it's between you and someone else, and hopefully it's you. But it's pretty easy.
It's so much easier on the sales side of things.
Oh, yeah. Because it's someone's dream.
Yeah.
Like and it's something I love too. So it's easy. That commercial side, there is sometimes no timeline. It's literally something like, yeah, that'd be cool to have.
Yeah.
They don't really need it. They definitely don't want to spend the money on it
right.
a lot of times. And
you have to really sell like the ROI on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the tricky part, and where most people are going to really struggle is to help them see tangibly what is the ROI on this.
How does this make me money?
Yeah. So
that is the big thing.
I remember there was one client who, or, you know, potential client that had come in, and we were pitching a big job to them, and they got all kind of hyped up and excited about it. And then I go to the next meeting with them where they're going to sign the contract. I've got the paper in my bag, you know, and it's the cold feet thing. And I realize it's because he is unsure about whether this is going to make a return on his investment.
Yeah, and they might have like a board that they have to go in front of.
Well, this was a smaller company, so it didn't. He was the decision maker.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a big contract. I think it was, you know, in the range of $25,000 to $30,000 contract. And so it's a significant thing, especially for a guy who's really, I mean, he was basically it was more or less an e-commerce site, you know. And I had to like sit there and sort of like coach him, like financially coach him through his business. Like, okay, talk to me about your sales. Like, what does a sale mean to you? Okay. So that's what one sale means. You know, how many sales do you think one of these videos would generate for you? You know, start talking through them, things like that. And I say, okay, well, let's take that, but then let's be super, super, super conservative. Let's say that this only gets you in the course of a year, and we made 52, you know, of these little YouTube videos for you. In the course of a year, let's say you only got, 8 of these. After 52 videos, you only got 8 contracts. You just 10x your money, you know. And so at that point, it was like obvious, like, oh yeah. And I actually told him, because we kind of got to that point in the relationship over lunch where I feel like I kind of like jab him a little bit. So I kind of told him, I was like, honestly, dude, you're crazy if you don't do this.
Yeah.
You know, and it worked, you know, and he signed the contract right
You
there.
have to be willing to play a game that a lot of wedding professionals are unwilling to play. And it's so much more of understanding the value of what you're really understanding. Because a lot of people are like, oh, understand the value. And I kind of have a problem with this when it comes to wedding films, like your value. I mean, your value is nothing. Actually, like you're not like, it's emotional and that's it.
Yeah.
You're not like, I do commercial work and I know what that means. When I say value, I'm thinking dollars and cents. I am making you money.
Yeah.
I'm not happy if I'm not making you money. And that's what I tell everybody. If this doesn't make you money, I'm not happy. If they have an idea that's bad and it's not going to make them money, I say, I don't want to make that for you because that's not going to make you money and you're going to hate me.
Yeah.
You're going to fire me. You're never going to hire me again. I'm not interested in one job. I want multiple jobs. I want you to be I want to be your go-to. And like, that takes me understanding how they make money. It takes me understanding how Facebook marketing works and YouTube marketing works and how the return on those investments even happens. And where does a sale happen? Where does a call to action happen?
Right.
Like, I have to have a vision for how they're going to deploy it. Like, that's been my big thing is like, we do some videos for like, oh, it's a person comes in, they say, hey, I want you to make a little video of my salon. Yeah, cool. I'll make a little tour video. I'll have one of my guys come down. We'll whip together a little 1 hour tour. I don't have a problem making that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I have a guy to do it. But if somebody's like, I have this thing I want to make, and I think, well, I don't think this is going to make him any money. Like, I'll just say it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just say it, and I'll try to get it there because I feel like that shows people that I care.
Right.
That shows people that I care. And like, how you do that with commercial work is so different than weddings. And if you're new to it, it will come as an absolute shock. You will feel either so uncomfortable because you actually don't understand their business and you only know how to make beautiful stuff, or you will feel so uncomfortable because you will feel like you're being pushy.
Yeah.
And demanding, or a little assertive in ways that you would never had to be.
Like calling them crazy if they don't do this.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be willing to kind of, and it's so much more risks because you can literally just, like, I know for a fact, if I send a creative treatment to someone and they don't like it, they will never call me again.
Yeah.
And it's over. Like, I can keep trying. I'll tell you a personal story of me failing. One time, kind of failing. I kind of don't really care about it, but they had this guy. He said, "Come in and do this thing," and he wanted some marketing help. And I knew we could do a good job, so I did a little research on their business. And I came in and I said, "Hey, here's where I think your storytelling is wrong, and why it's confusing. And you have 3 brands, and I don't see the cohesion. I don't see why." Like, they had a process of making their food, and I'm like, you say it in the sign, but nowhere do you have pictures of how it works. It doesn't even. Why is this better?
Yeah.
Why am I going to pay 5 times more than average price? Because you made it this way. And so I thought I had good ideas, and I communicated this to them. Well, of course, at the end they say, "Well, send me a bunch of your work and a brief and all this stuff." And I'm thinking, I'm going to sing for my supper, bro. Like, you called me.
Yeah.
You brought me out here. You like my work enough to have it. But I was like, and this is my mistake, actually. My mistake was saying I would do it. What I should have said to him was, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't need your money. So if you want it.
Yeah. You called me here.
But anyway, I said I would, and I took longer to do it. And I finally got it to him. He's like, "Oh, we're not interested in working with you. You didn't do what you said." And I honestly forgot. And I was like, it's an honest mistake. I apologize. But that is what will happen in commercial work.
Yeah.
Like they don't care about me. They're not emotionally attached to me like a bride is going to be when she calls me. Like, some brides feel like if they don't get you, that's going to ruin their wedding.
Yeah.
Those companies do not feel that way about you.
Yep.
They're just like, if it works out, like, at best.
Right.
At best, they're like, if it works out. At worst, they're like, oh, I have to buy this freaking video. I don't want to buy this stupid thing. Somebody on the team, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That will absolutely blow your mind. So if you're looking I'm not trying to dissuade you from getting into commercial work if you're listening to this. I'm just being real with you. Don't be shocked. Gird your loins, young man.
Yeah.
Get ready to go with it because you're for the fight of your life. If you can do it, though, I can tell you for us, I know I have a quarter of my money every year, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
On retainer. Just floating in.
Yep.
And that's life-changing.
Yeah.
For your
absolutely.
business. That'll change so many things. And so, hey, Jordan, I just want to thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Good discussion. Super exciting to watch the Patriots game with
Thanks
you
for
tomorrow.
the tickets.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
So definitely, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you throughout the internet?
Yeah. The best place is Film Mavericks. If you look up Film Mavericks, it's actually kind of hard to find because I realized after I named it that there was like this huge YouTuber that's like Maverick Films.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, filmmaverics.com, Film Mavericks on Instagram, Facebook. We have actually really like amazing Facebook group of people who are like generally positive. So Film Mavericks on Facebook, and YouTube.
I don't really fit in on his Facebook group.
Yeah, no, he's from Boston, so
we're abrasive. And what about your wedding stuff?
Ladybird Studios, ladybirdsstudios.com. Again, Ladybird Studios at all the normal places. We didn't have to like add any weird numbers or anything on
nice
Instagram or anything like that. So
I pretty much named my business based on being able to get the .com.
That's what you have to do whenever I'm thinking about any new business venture. It's you go to GoDaddy or something.
Yep.
Ironically,
our .com was blacklisted on Facebook for about 8 years. So, which we found that out later. Anyway, hey, thank you so much for checking out the Wedding Pros podcast. Definitely subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that bell.
Hit the like button.
Yes, like us. Share.
If you hated this, then you wouldn't be here now. But hit it twice, right?
Yeah, and also if you hate it, just write a mean comment. I just encourage you to.
Somebody needs to write a mean comment on this guy's page.
We've had a few people. We had one person. People are so brutal. We had this guy go Jared we were talking about building our dream rig, and Jared mentioned a camera, and he just mistakenly said 4K 120.
I think I watched that show.
Yeah, he just said it.
I remember laughing, and I was like, yeah.
He just said it because he was thinking about the Ursa.
Yeah.
And he just said it, and then I was like, nobody will notice it.
Oh,
It's one guy.
Videographers, they know about their specs.
He was like, that's not that.
Get it right.
And I was like, it's YouTube. Can't upload a new file.
Yep.
So, sorry, guys. Hey, anyway, thanks for checking it out, and have a wonderful day.